How have you seen AI kind of affect either positively or negatively the space that you're in, that kind of, sharing knowledge, content, coaching? How are you using that to be beneficial?
AI is not going to be a silver bullet, which I think people hope it's going to be. You're still going to need to understand the basic fundamentals of your businesses. And actually, I think for recruiters, the best recruiters will still continue to rise to the top because they're going to have to with all the noise that AI is going to create. In the sense that you won't need humans involved.
That everything is done by agents, essentially, but you still need the humans there to close the deals, talk to the clients, talk to the candidates, etc. Hi everyone, this is the episode that everybody knew was coming eventually. I'm delighted to introduce to you all today on the Founder Story Couch, my very good friend and prolific founder, Andy Hallett. Hi Andy.
Hey Donna.
You made it eventually.
Got here in the end. You wanted some proper guests, didn't you?
I couldn't have you on first because you know what everyone said when I started the podcast? She's going to have Andy and she's going to have Kalpesh.
Okay.
And so I couldn't have either of you.
Have I beaten Kalpesh?
You have.
Amazing.
Sorry, Kalps. So I couldn't give them what they wanted yet. But you're here. And actually, let's take away the fact that we know each other and we've worked together. You have a really interesting founder story. So I think this is going to be a fantastic episode. But before we go into your story, let's talk about the businesses that you're building today. Because you're running a couple of businesses at the moment. So let's just touch on those. What are you building? What are the problems that you're solving?
Yeah, so I run two businesses. The first one that I founded, Rexpan, is my consulting business. It's me and my VA Zoe. He's amazing, but pretty much I founded the business to essentially solve the problems that recruitment agencies have in growing and scaling, and also vendors selling into the space have growing and scaling. So started it in COVID. The actual business started in March 2020, so lockdown kicked in, and I was sat there without a salary and with a business without any customers. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Couldn't get any loans, bounce backs or anything like that because I wasn't qualified. I'd started the business about 3 days before I could have qualified for that. So yeah, had quite a chastening story, but also as well, it was a fantastic time to start a business. So the way I looked at it, actually, there was people who were doing a similar business to me, who probably had 15, 20 customers. They probably had staff. They probably had offices. I was sat there in my pants with a MacBook. So actually, it was quite a leveler going through that. And yeah, I just gave away my time. And also as well, it's really helpful because I think a lot of people it was completely uncharted territory. And I think I'm actually quite good at working out problems. So I think actually when no one knew what the playbook or the rule book was for what's going to happen, actually, I found it quite a good problem to solve. And, and a number of those businesses who I'd sort of given away my time to came to me and said, we'd like to take you on. And, yeah, the rest is history from there on. So that's the first business.
Yeah, and for anyone that's listening that doesn't know you, that's all staffing firms, right?
Staffing firms and also firms that want to sell into the staffing market.
Right. Okay, so in that kind of category then.
Yeah, and it's agency based, not your in-house stuff.
Yes, okay.
So that's pretty much my world.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, you were saying about the other business.
Yeah, so the other business was originally the Lockdown Leadership Network. I was on one of those Zoom calls that everyone had on a Friday evening to get their way through lockdown, drinking in the back garden. And myself and Dalta were the last two standing. And we said, we could probably do this, and we could do this ourselves. So we put together a WhatsApp group. By the end of the weekend, we had a couple of hundred founders in the WhatsApp group, our network. We chunked it into the three sort of cohorts we have now, which is founder, 1 to 5 heads, growth, 5 to 50 heads, and then enterprise, 50 heads plus. And it's been a journey. Originally, it started as the Lockdown Leadership Network, and then when lockdown ended, it's a great name, so we changed it to Required.
So that's Required. And how have you monetized that then?
Monetize it in two ways. We're free to join, so anyone who's a recruitment founder can come join. and join the conversation, join the party. We monetize it in two ways. We've got our Orca platform, which stands for the Online Recruitment Academy. Online Recruitment and Coaching Academy.
I was going to say, you're missing a letter there,
Yeah, we're missing a letter there. So, or just Aura. Orca. So Orca effectively is if you want to train your staff, or if you're a solopreneur, then you want to just update your training. So it originally was Required Plus. We've teamed up with Dan Alexander, who built all the original content, and he's a prolific sales trainer. And now I think we've got up to 20 different trainers on board. So lots of different skills for different people at different times in their careers. We've got a major enterprise client we've just signed. We're about to go live.
Congratulations.
With. So our beachhead client, and you'll be seeing that all over LinkedIn repeatedly.
I'm sure.
And also as well, we team up with a number of premium partners as well who sponsor our network, and we co-host events, mainly virtual, online, but some physical in person as well. So
Cool. How have you seen AI kind of affect, either positively or negatively, the space that you're in, that kind of sharing knowledge, content, coaching? How are you using that to be beneficial?
AI is an interesting one. If you read The Telegraph, which I do, and for my sins, so the first job that's going to go is management consulting. So obviously my mum and dad were really upset when they read that and really worried about it. But actually, for me in my business, it actually just really helped me.
Yeah.
So actually, I feel like I don't take notes anymore. I can work. I can spend a lot more time thinking rather than writing. Summaries are a lot easier when I'm drafting letters or documents. It's just a lot easier. But you still actually need to know what to ask. So I think for me in my businesses, AI has been a real help. I've grown up in recruitment, always being told that this is going to disrupt you. So when I first came in, the internet was going to disrupt recruitment, job boards were going to disrupt recruitment, LinkedIn was going to disrupt recruitment. And at every turn, recruiters and agencies have just used these tools to be so much better. So from my point of view, AI, I think, enables people to do more, to do better, but also as well, you've got to then use those advantages because everyone else is going to have that advantage as well.
Yeah. And do you have it with your premium partners? Are you seeing a lot of AI coming into the space now, or is it kind of lagging behind maybe certain other sectors?
No, I think you're definitely seeing AI. I think what we've actually seen is the usefulness of AI as well. There's a lot of talk around how it's disrupting and adding value, and actually you're starting to see some of the tools really starting to improve. The note takers now are all brilliant. Just to see, and I use Quill, and just to see how that improves almost on a daily basis is phenomenal, and it's really changed the game in terms of what I can do. We're seeing some really interesting stuff being talked about, but there's some really, some of the stuff that is really starting to change the game is some of the assistive stuff, some of the agentive stuff. Even just some of the automation, which I know a lot of people are packaging up as AI, is really, really useful. Yeah. Fundamentally, though, AI is not going to be a silver bullet, which I think people hope it's going to be. You're still going to need to understand the basic fundamentals of your businesses. And actually, I think for recruiters, the best recruiters will still continue to rise to the top because they're going to have to with all the noise that AI is going to create.
What's your view on... And this is the last question I'm going to ask you about AI in recruitment because I want to talk about you. But controversial or not, you're known to be able to kind of share your controversial opinions. You don't have any issues doing that. So what do you think about completely AI native technology stack in recruitment? In
the sense that you won't need humans involved?
No, in the sense that there's no development really on kind of, CRM platforms, things like that. So everything is done by agents essentially, but you still need the humans there to close the deals, talk to the clients, talk to the candidates, etc. But everything they essentially have agents working for them as opposed to typing notes in CRMs, things like that.
It reminds me of a film called War Games back in the day, and it's an 80s film, and if anyone wants to watch it, it's still a great film by any standard.
War Games, did you
War
say?
Games,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
And what happens is two computers start playing against each other, and it's tic-tac-toe, but it's a metaphor for nuclear war. And my fear around AI is you're going to have AI-generated job specs posting to AI-generated content to AI-generated feeds, which, in return, effectively AI-generated responses on behalf of people. And at what point do anyone actually get there? By the time they've submitted responses and we've gone through screening and then we set up interviews, at what point are the humans actually going to talk? So I think there's going to be, you'll start to see it in some of the commoditized roles. So, I need a barista for a day, or I need a waiting service or something like that. You might see it more in blue collar. I think STEM is still going to be, for a long time, that human relationship. And actually those relationships are really going to stand above that whole level of AI automation. You will see AI introduced to tech stacks as it becomes better for, I think, the customers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So as it becomes better and more, I think, productive for the users, I think you'll start to see, and I know that sounds very, that's a very, very obvious answer, but I think AI has the potential to, in some things, to be better.
Yeah.
And therefore, those things it can be better at, it will naturally take over. But I think, like any form of new technology, I think we're very much at the start of it as well, and we probably can't even imagine most of the use cases or how it's going to transform. And it will probably transform slower than we think, and then it will transform bigger than we could ever thought of.
Right.
If we're at the sort of, I say to people, we're probably, if this was the internet, we're probably at the stage that we're looking at pictures of cats. Yes,
because that's the best frame of reference we can use, right? That's the last time anything like this ever happened to us. We can look at that and see how that played out, and be forgiven for thinking that it's going to be a similar kind of process this time around, right? And change.
But to go back to my COVID analogy, okay, we've not been through this seismic shift before. We've not implemented, these types. So all we can do is navigate what we know.
Yeah.
We know unknowns. We know what we don't know. I'm sounding like Rumsfeld here, but again, what do we know now? And what do we need to do? And the other thing as well is, I think the thing that AI has changed is the speed of change. But also as well, so is the internet. And the pace of change just means that your skills in adapting to change just need to get better and better as a leader and a founder.
Yeah. I completely agree, and I'm not going to ask you any more about that because I want to talk about you. I don't want to run out of time before we've all found out. And I'm sure I could find out a little bit more about you as well, because I don't know everything. And I'm interested to know a little bit more about your journey. So you mentioned that you've been in recruitment for pretty much your entire career, right?
Yeah.
Did you do much before that?
Since July 99. So I actually, I went to school. That's pretty, for a good few years. I think my journey probably started when I got a part-time job at the Sony Centre.
Right.
I did my work experience at school there, and then I worked through university during holidays and then weekends there. And that's actually when I really learned to sell. So I learned to understand products, learned to understand features, learned to understand buying signals, learned to know that if I wanted to sell a camcorder, I just had to point it at people's kids and they say how precious memories are and what price would you put on the value of your child's seeing this again.
Fantastic.
And they were like, wow, there we go. And actually becoming one of the top salespeople with what I describe as adults was great. So I did that for a number of years. But retail is a great environment to learn how to do that. You learn so many different skills. Then went to university, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I got elected president of the Students' Union, which is the best job in the world. So you are legally responsible.
What do you have to do
charity.
to get that job? Do you have to go through a whole process?
You have to go hustings. You have to say why your policies will be great. I I had a friend who was working at a travel lodge. She stole some sheets. We sewed them together. We painted on a Vote Andy Hallett campaign, and hired someone who, for 3 pints, who climbed up to the Students' Union, top of the Students' Union building, and hung the banner.
I love the currency, by the way, is pints.
It was pints.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a big problem because the university couldn't remove it. So because it was a health and safety risk for anyone to go up. So
Is it still there now?
No, it's not. They had to get a cherry picker to do it. But because I didn't do it, I didn't put it up there. So and it was, so I got away with it. I was
and it
elected.
worked. You got elected.
It worked. Got elected, and it's a really interesting grounding. For anyone who's been involved, the NUS, National Union of Students, gives really good training. So apart from being an elected official, you're actually running a business. So we had, I think it was 40 plus full-time staff. It was a £4 million a year turnover business, predominantly the bars and grants. Sports societies, so things like minibuses, Land Rovers, for that type of thing. It's a great business, and you represent students. You sit on the university council, so you sit on the university senate. So you're actually involved in a lot of adult stuff. So that was great. Did that for a year. Then again, there's a theme here. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had a mate who was working at Progressive, which is one of the S3 brands. She was earning silly money, and she'd never done sales before. I had a mate who was at Computer Futures, who she'd got the job. He was earning silly money, and I still reckon I was better than him. Clearly neither of them wanted to work with me, so they recommended me to Huxley Associates in the city, who were opening a Reading office.
Just trying to infiltrate every S3 brand then with one of you.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And started there as a contract recruitment consultant. Did that for 7-8 years. Then
what year was that?
1999, July 99.
Tell people what recruitment was like in 1999.
Yeah, so a bit of we just had a ATS CRM, easy access for any of the S3 stalwarts that will know it. Still really simple system. I think everyone enjoyed their first system they worked with because that's the one they learned on tour with. I worked in the City of London. I can only describe it as a boiler room, and there were about 100 of us in America Square. I learned a lot on the job there, and I learned a lot in the Hogshead, which was the pub opposite. It's a fantastic environment. We used to deliver CVs primarily. We just started to use email, but also as well there's often a queue for the fax machine because customers would always want that. If you signed up a contractor, it was literally you signed up a contractor, you printed your contract out, you went and met them at Liverpool Street Station, and they signed the contract there and then. So it was proper old school. Really, again, that's where you start to see the internet coming in. I joined just before Y2K, so everyone had, as a contract, everyone had buttoned down their systems, weren't doing anything. So it was a bit tough to start, but we got going.
Because everyone thought it was going to blow up.
Everyone thought it was going to go up, and then there was the dot-com boom, and then the dot-com crash. So yeah, it was all.
What about the culture? What was it like there then?
I would say that the culture was. It was hard-working, high-performing, and actually what I've seen in recruitment is, I can only speak for the offices I was in, but it was start at 8:30, finish at 6:30, and it was, ridiculous amount of time you'd have to do on the phones, contact time, amount of leads, the targets. I think. It's very difficult, though, to compare the job today with the job then. I think the job was a lot simpler then. You could pick up the phone and dial, and actually people at the other end would answer the phone, which, again, is very difficult today. There wasn't the amount of competition. There were a lot less agencies. There were a lot less people doing it. So it's very, very different time. And I think it was probably when I joined feels like a bit of a transition time. Job boards were just becoming more popular. So the internet was taking over the written media. So the permanent guys would still need to write their job ads for Computer Weekly and get it in by the deadline. But also as well, we would fax. We would actually write and fax or type up and send a fax to JobServe, who would then put their ads on. And then they had a portal, so you could actually directly type on, and then you got things like Broadbean came out, and so gradually we went through that sort of technological change.
It must have been really interesting being in that environment, which is quite a pressurized environment. So no one's going to cut you any slack just because the technology is changing. Your targets aren't going to go down. So you've got to keep moving forward with all of this change happening around you. And yet you stood the test of time. So you were in that company in some way, shape or form for quite some time, right? When actually it was quite easy to get fired from at that time. It wasn't difficult to get fired from one of those businesses at that point. How many times would you have to miss target?
Yeah, I mean,
once?
No, once. I mean, to put it into context, I mean, you were 2 or 3 deals was the absolute minimum you were looking at, and this is how it's changed a lot, where the expectation now is maybe 1, 2 that you see across the industry. I mean, if you blanked, probably you'd be given a McDonald's application form, literally presented, and things
like 1 month, you mean, for the blank of a month, not a quarter month.
No, and I think I went 4 or 5 years before I think I blanked 1 month. And I think, it's 4 or 5 years from the point I became a consultant, and there was a couple of months where it was tight, but I don't think I ever blanked until about maybe year 4 or 5, and I remember feeling how bad that was. But then, you'd hopefully go and knock in 5 or 6. I think my top month, I think I did 8, and that was by no means. There were people doing well into double figures as well. I was no means the best consultant. I was solid, but there were some brilliant people I worked with.
The rewards have changed as well, haven't they? So maybe the environment's different, but the things that you could do, the wealth that you could unlock in recruitment then was, I mean, you can still get rich, but I think it was sports cars and Rolexes and everything all flying around, and that was very much the norm, right? Or is that just what we see? I think
there are definitely people and companies doing that performance, but to put it into context, the third car target was a Porsche Boxster. So my mum, when I got the job in '99, said, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And it was only literally when I bought a flat and stuck a Porsche on the drive that the company had paid for, that she actually believed. And I think getting that car at like 25.
25.
Yeah, 25, 26. You wouldn't be able to insure that car at that age, and there were a fair few written off as well. But it was, and then I think it did change, and I think then what happened, certainly becoming a public company probably changed that. You had to change. You don't want that sort of reputation, and certainly change the company a bit. But you certainly see. I think people saw, like in any industry, you see supernormal profits, and recruitment companies were making so you'll see commoditization, and it certainly did happen. And I think I was just very lucky to be at a company that did evolve. So, and having done sales for maybe 8-9 years, moving into the different 7-8 years, moving into different roles was great for me as well.
I'm interested to know how it changed you. So you obviously had this knack for sales and this ability to do things like point a camcorder in a kid's face, and that's how you sell the camcorder, right? So I think that's in you. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that hard environment for that length of time, it's like sports people training hard all of the time. It's got to do something to an individual. By the time we met was 2015, 2016.
Yep.
You're still there, obviously still not as a biller, not as an IC, but have been through the journey. And I was absolutely petrified of you when I walked into that, and we'll talk about our journey in a second. But I saw somebody who was an extremely scary man. And I mean, I wasn't personally, I just thought you were a very scary man. I wasn't frightened of you, but I thought you were a very scary man. And so I'm interested to know, like, how that experience of, just that relentless grind, do you think that did kind of harden you in a way or change your personality to the point that you actually became you had this kind of shield up that it took quite a lot to penetrate.
I'd be interested to see why you thought it was scary.
You just had you had an armor about you that was just relentless, just very much like you weren't particularly approachable. You just didn't actually think you were that nice to start with, if I'm honest.
No,
and it's not until you work together for a little while you think, he's actually a really nice guy.
Don't tell everyone.
But it does take a while to get there. But I don't know whether that's just because sometimes people just are how they are. And I actually prefer people that are not just nice all the time, because I don't trust that. But I wonder whether that's a product of being in that environment every single day from 8:30 till 6:30 for a very long time.
Probably the evolution of my career. So after I did the sales, I was made commercial manager at Huxley, and later I became commercial director for the group. So as a commercial director, your job is somewhere between black and white. So if you say no to everything, you don't do any business. If you say yes to everything, you end up with big lawsuits and things like that. So typically I was always representing what was right for the business, and I was very lucky. I had very good bosses. The reason I stayed so long at S3 was I had some brilliant bosses in Mike Smith, the guy that hired me, Scott Fulton, who was my first manager and team leader, Gary Eldon at Huxley, Steve Quinn. I spent lots of time with Russell, Sunil, Tasha Clark was great, and latterly Dave Reese and Mike Walker. And every one of those managers who had, I learned something off. But as someone who, I didn't have a role in the company that was defined. So I had to make my own role in the company, and to that you always have to show value, and you always have to show that you can manage yourself. You're effectively creating a path for yourself that doesn't exist. So I would see problems in the organisation, and rather than saying that's a problem, I would go and solve those problems, come back, fix it, hand it off, move on to the next exciting project. So you'd have come in at a time where I was transitioning. I was moving from commercial director to investment director. So what Gary Eldon had asked me to look at our suite of investments portfolio. So around, I think, 2016, S3 decided that disruption is coming. We are going to look at how we avoid disruption, and let's look at some new platform. Let's look at building stuff. Let's look at buying stuff. And I was brought in, I think, to again just put some rigor around that. So we had a lot of expenditure going out, and just making sure that we were getting return on our investment, shareholders' investment, and making sure that we were spending our limited resources in the right way. So and sometimes actually asking difficult questions might be seen as scary, and if people have got answers, I'm very convincible. One of the best things that I did at S3 in 2012, I went through it's almost like a skinny MBA at Henley Business School, leadership, and two things that came out of my psychometric profile. One, I have the lowest recorded score for emotional intelligence at the Henley Business School, which was quite breaking for me. But the second thing that I found was, and they actually marked me down for this, I was very persuadable. So what happened was that if someone manages to persuade me, I'll change my mind. And I actually disagree with that. I actually think that's a good thing, because if someone shows you facts, shows you evidence, and then you change your opinion, but apparently teams and groupthink don't like that if you change that. And going back, I was probably, we'd go into a board meeting and there would be 10 people and they'd all say the same thing. And even if I didn't believe it, I'd always put the counterpoint, because you should always put the counterpoint. Otherwise, there was a guy called Frank Douglas who everyone should follow on LinkedIn, put some really interesting stuff around diversity. He's an expert in that space. And he came and observed some board meetings, and he said, we'd go through the board meeting, everyone would say what they're going to do, and I would be the only one and make myself really unpopular by saying, how are we going to do that? And sometimes maybe people are scared by the questions or that.
I think maybe that's just it. The role that you were in was to ask questions, and those questions were difficult. I think for me, I only went from what happened to the room when you came into it, and sometimes people would shrink slightly in their chairs, and so I was a little bit kind of interested as to why that was. I think one of our first interactions, well, we had the interview, which was fine, you seemed perfectly nice, but then I was instructed to come to your office, which was at a different part of London, and I didn't know London very well at the time, and I got horribly lost. And when I got there, I was late, and we walked back to King William Street, and you didn't say a word to me the whole way, and I was like, he's really pissed at me. So I was like, I'm going to lose my job. But it's worth saying, actually, because you touched on your role there. A lot of people say to me, oh, you're XS3. I'm like, no, I'm actually not.
You were the crazy shit department.
The crazy shit department. So when you were saying you were brought in to head up this, these investments, let's call it as it is. It was the crazy shit department. S3 had decided to invest in building and buying lots of different innovations, which could potentially put them ahead of the game. And that's what I was brought in, almost to go and see whether anyone actually wanted to buy said products.
Yeah. And
to come back and report back and say, kill that one, that was whatever. So yeah, I think it was, for me, it was the best job I've ever had, because it changed my life in so many ways. And you're a big part of it. So let's flip the whole Mr. Nasty for a second, because I think you're not Mr. Nasty. I did think you were quite scary at first. But as we got to know each other, I think what I saw was somebody who was a very good mentor. So the people around the crazy shit department actually looked to you for mentorship, and not necessarily, I wouldn't go as far as to say friendship at that time, but certainly looked to you for kind of guidance. And you also really had our backs at that point. So let's talk about that point. And actually, let's just label it a showcaser, because whilst we played around, didn't we? We've lots of different technology.
Talent deck.
You're going to go there? Yeah, we had talent deck, and we had, the various different things which were just, which were killed. But I think that it was job done, wasn't it? It's like play around with all this stuff and see if one of them lands. And I think Showcaser was a fantastic product. And that was the kind of team that we built. We almost became self-sustaining. The fact that we were plonked right bang in the middle of the finance office in S3 was just unfortunate for us. But ultimately, we were a startup, and that's how it felt. So going from being investment director at S3 to founder at Showcaser, that's where I think you transitioned from one to the other, and really loved that role as founder at Showcaser.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing for me, S3, for those who don't know, was about 3,000 people. So coming from commercial director, I'd effectively taken my role and saw where it was going. And Dave Reese was really good at this. And he's like, look, the future's, you can't be this central piece. It's all going regional. And so I worked and, effectively made my job at the mothership redundant. And there's some great people that went on and now doing jobs just as big in the regional role. It's fantastic to see. And I was very lucky that Gary Eldon put his faith in me to go and work on these investments. And we looked at build, buy, or rent. What are the things that can move the dial, move the needle for S3 over the coming years? And I can only describe it as, having come out of that, as almost like finishing school. I could work in a corporate, I could work there, but okay, can you do it in the hustle? And it was just like being president of the student union, like being a salaried student's the best job in the world, having effectively money to invest, and actually potentially when you're building recruitment products, an active customer's absolutely fantastic. So I learned a whole bunch of stuff there and a whole bunch of skills, which then when I moved into doing this for myself, it just made it a lot less scary. Yeah. Because the other thing I would say as well is founding your own business, you have no technical debt. It's just you. You can make decisions. And actually there was some of that freedom, but it was still never fully hands off. We're a PLC. Even though we were separate, we still had to play by the rules, as it were. And that's why I think innovation at big firms is really, and that's why startups can just out-navigate the bigger firms. So probably in hindsight, we'd have been much better off just waiting around, picking the winner and buying it.
Yeah, agreed. But it's still a cool time, right?
It's a really cool time, and I learned a lot about myself. And I think actually having had that sort of big title, and almost you sort of, when you have that title, people have to, do and follow, and then effectively, actually it didn't matter if you can go in and sell to other recruitment agencies a product. You've got to get humble, and I think the thing for me was the feeling of getting back on the tools and I remember we went out to Amsterdam to unleash, and I think our challenge was, we've got a prototype. If we can't sell it, we're shutting the project, because I can't go and ask for further investment if I don't believe in the product. And we went there, we sold we did. We sold to the in-house team there.
Yeah.
And we had proof of life. We had a brilliant couple of evenings as well.
Did we do like 75 demos in a day or something ridiculous?
We did, and actually,
I've got a photograph of us on the way home, and we look like we're in our last legs. I think we called it the hustle, didn't we? Yeah. Donna was the roper. She would go out and bring people into the stand, and we would then demo it. It's really interesting. With the Rec Expo now, particularly once Vincere was acquired by Access, and we had this like huge, even the Vincere stand at the pre-acquisition was impressive. And the reps are all moaning about the stand and everything else. I'm like literally showcase, and we turned up at the corner of the Rec Expo with the stand on my back in a bag, and then I would go out and kind of pull people in, and
but it really upsets me when you go to these events and you've just got the reps stood there, right? And they're letting people walk past and they're unengaged, because you pay, and this was probably, we treated it like our own money. And therefore we're here. We've spent this budget, therefore we can't spend it on something else. So we're gonna grab this. We're gonna make this happen. And that sort of whole startup hustle was unbelievable. And definitely I think if it felt like our investment. And now you as a founder now know that every pound that you spend, you have to get that return.
Yeah, it's really good lesson. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if we didn't have had that experience, because I think I was doing it at a particularly difficult time for me when my back was against the wall anyway. So it meant so much, and we were very successful. I think we, for our short journey in that company, the velocity of our growth was huge. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be.
Well, look, I think you probably kept the project going on 6 months longer because I believed in you. I think the other thing as well is that, I knew that you needed it to be a success. I knew you needed to be successful, coming in 2 hours every day, children that were relying on you. And you're one of the hardest people I've ever known to, working wise as well. So, absolutely intense. And you were that intense with me. I knew you were going to be that intense with the customers.
I think it was, if it was to do with the way that we sold it, I think it would have been successful. But, we talked to lots and lots of startup founders, and most of them, their businesses, their products don't go anywhere, and it's not always because of the product. There's lots of other things at play, and that was just the way that it was, and actually turned out quite well. I think everything happens for a reason, and we're both running our own businesses now. But obviously, I went. You stayed at S3 for a couple of years. I
didn't stay on that much longer. So the history was that new CEO comes in, innovation, investment, and I think had a new CEO comes in, looks around, sees a budget there that doesn't fit.
Who are they?
Yeah, pretty much. And actually asked me, if based on my strategy, what would you do? I said I'd stick that money into USA and stick that money into Germany. And I think probably Yeah, I probably should have gone down with the ship, and I was asked to stay, and maybe that was probably stayed on a few months longer. But I think once you've almost been out of that environment, it's very difficult to go back in.
Yeah.
And but also as well, I'd done 20 years there, 20 years, great years, and just had a very adult, grown-up conversation, and really nice exit, handled really, really professionally. Dave Reese, Helen Wallace, it was just very, very amicable.
Yeah.
Allowed me to take a break, something I hadn't done in 20 years, which was fantastic, and then really crack back on and get doing things I want to do. Looked around at maybe other jobs, didn't necessarily want to go and do the same thing for a different company again. And it was actually Dalton, my business partner, that he's didn't manage to find me a job, so he's like, why don't you just do it as an independent? And Tim Cook from Engage said, Andy, you're massively overpaid. Just but find out where you can add some value and go and do that. Thanks, Tim. So helpful comments like that. But I think the thing is, for me, the joy I get now is working with lots and lots of different people, and it's still that problem solving, and it's still the nice thing as well is working with mostly smaller organisations. I've worked for a bigger organisation in the industry, but it's very difficult when you work for a big company and you've been there 20 years to make a difference. You can't be a preacher in your own town. So the things that I say or do now actually have much more of an impact. And people, if they got external advice, often listen to it a lot more. So for me, as much I think the thing I most enjoy now around running my own consulting business is I get to make a difference. And I know that sounds so cliche.
It's lovely to hear you say that, though, because you care about the impact that you're having. It's not just about the paycheck at the end of it. I'm sure you charge ridiculous amounts of money. I wouldn't even like to ask. But I'm sure that there is value at the end of that. Even just your LinkedIn posts, I read them when they're about tax, because they are so genuine and so interesting, and you've got a lot of knowledge there. There's 20 years of knowledge that you've banked that you can now drip feed into the smaller businesses to help them get ahead of the game. And it sounds like you've stayed like ahead of the curve as well. Like, what you're always the one who does the first post-budget LinkedIn post. So it sounds like you've really stayed kind of ahead of what's going on in the market, and you've become somebody that smaller companies can really rely on, not just if they're paying you, but just by looking at your LinkedIn, to say, actually, he really knows his shit, he knows what he's going on about, we need to listen. That's
very kind. I mean, I think where I help businesses is those businesses have had a good start. And I talk about when someone founds their business, generally, if they've been well trained, they've spent time in the business, in their industry, they'll be okay. And what gets them through is an away from motivation. So that is, geez, I've got to pay my mortgage, I've got to pay my car loan, I've got kids to feed, all of these things I have to do better or as well as I was, for the salary that I don't have. And then, most people will get to that point, and then it's like, and now what? What's going to drive you there once you've got that? What are the bad habits maybe you need to unpick? What are the foundations you need to put in place so that you can actually grow past that? So you're not constantly having that flywheel of fear to keep you going.
Yeah.
What's going to take you to the next stage? So typically that's where, I help businesses then to really kick on to the next stage, and that means putting in platforms, making you because generally, if I'm talking about recruitment founders, they're great salespeople, but actually they've probably worked at great sales businesses where they've not had to manage the business. All they've had to do is manage people and a sales process, and typically things like the finances, things like the staff, the staffing, things like maybe even the marketing, and just around getting those foundations, technology, just getting those foundations in place so they can then grow, so they don't go 10 people, 11 people, 12 people, 9 people.
Yeah.
That they can then, and actually I think the founders that I've seen, and there's a lot of them from from the S3 mothership. They've gone on to build good businesses. They've always then put in good infrastructure. They've got to that point and they've put in good infrastructure. They've put in good people around them, and they've then gone on and scaled and grown and done their things. So, and it's great to see those people. And it's not, I think there's a mixture of people who've worked with me previously, but also it's great working with people that I haven't worked with in the past as well. So.
And you seem really happy in yourself as well. I'm probably the happiest I've seen you. So something's going right. Obviously, you've got 2 beautiful children, a new beautiful wife as well. So things are going well for you on a personal.
I've got 3 beautiful children.
3?
So
because you've got you've joined forces.
With the new beautiful wife comes new beautiful child.
Yeah.
So 100%. I'm at a space where I'm really lucky that I've worked, I've had a good career as an employee, and that's enabled me then to have a good career as a consultant, and really, building businesses and the fun of building businesses, both my own consulting business and actually building the required business with Dalton and Charlotte has been fantastic. So I actually get my fill of the stuff I do on my own, but then having to go back to work as a team as well is and it actually feels like some of those startup days, and the hustle of starting it, probably the toughest times we've had is when it's going well. It's actually the build, I think, that's the most enjoyable bit. When you actually get there, it's like, okay, now what? So you've constantly got to be reinventing and building to keep yourself energized. But also I think what has helped as well is the market's feeling so much better. I don't know how you found it. So we're recording this now, December 25. It just feels like the last quarter just feels like everyone's a little bit happier. And look at the data, it's awful. But the sentiment's brilliant. And this is what I think people probably don't get about recruitment. When we came into this downturn, the sentiment was appalling, the data was good. We're the canaries in the mine. We are literally the bellwethers of where I think the economy is going, and I think it's going to be all right.
Well, if you say that, then we should all trust you. And I'm sure it's going to be all right for you as well. What's next on your agenda from a personal perspective and from a business perspective?
From a personal perspective, I turn 50 next year. So, so from a personal perspective, keep the businesses going. I want to get back into my running. When you first met me, you were just
you
running,
running.
That's I've taken up squash again, which is fantastic. So I want to get back to a competitive level, doing that again.
You're so obsessive when you start something as well. You are crazy. You went for a run around the block one day after waking up with a bottle of wine in your hand or something, and ended up doing an ultra in South Africa.
Yeah, from hangover to ultra could be my break.
That was that. Yeah, but you're the new couch to 5K, hangover to ultra. So whatever you turn your hand to, I just know you're going to go fully 2 feet in.
I think so. And I think around that, we're really excited by Orca.
Yeah.
We genuinely think
that's quite new, isn't it? It's only in the last few months that's come around.
Yeah, so we launched it, and we've had some really good success. We're still trying to just find that product market fit. And it's one of those things that once you start building up the case studies, which we're starting to get, it'll be fantastic. We're really excited about new partners we're bringing on for Required next year. Feels like we are. There's a whole bunch of new tech that's coming out. And we're really good at promoting new technology. I think we're really good at understanding it as well. Is powerful. I start 2 new consultancies in January, which I'm really excited about.
Nice.
So new companies to work with. A really a couple of really energized founders who are really open to growing and to change. And I'm really excited for that. So pretty much more of the same. I think I've it's interesting you say about my content. I've always been probably one of the things you didn't pick up on me. I think I never want to be the out there person. I quite like being the scary number 2 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I don't necessarily. And actually, I think probably the thing that has changed about being a founder and Showcase was also that you have to get over that fear. You have to really do that. So I think probably a bit more next year, a bit more posting, practice what I preach. And just
channel Andy on the stage at Unleash. Channel him, because he was loving being centre stage. So
I remember.
Would like to see more of him.
Put that video out there, but it'd be interesting to go back and watch that again.
Yeah.
But I'm hosting a panel at the Rec Expo again, which is nice, potentially a little bit out of my comfort zone, which is great.
It's quite scary actually. I did last year, and I'm used to standing up and being me, and I could do that bit, but I sat down to do the panel, and I was a bit like, wow, this is quite nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but there's always a first time for everything. So I started doing a podcast that literally 7 people watch, I'm sure. But once you've done it, you get used to it, you get better, and it's great. And actually now I've got some amazing case studies of things we did 4 or 5 years ago that worked, that I can now go to prospects. Look, this is what I was talking about. This is the journey you're on, and that's been fantastic as well, to have that sort of, I think, digital footprint. That I think the other thing as well is having a network and having a reputation is going to be so important. And actually, I'm not worried about AI for myself. I do worry about how people entry level into this business, or my children entering the world of work, are going to be able to get ahead.
Yeah, I am with you on that one. Having teenagers myself and seeing how they do their schoolwork, which is all on ChatGPT. I urge them to, yes, if you want to look over things on AI, fine, but don't let it take over your critical thinking, because it's quite an important thing that we've got up there. We need to use it. Andy, this has been amazing. The time has flown.
Jeez, it has.
It has real flown. But I mean it. You look very happy, very smiley. It's great to see. And I'm really glad that we stayed in touch. And
I'm just going to ask one last thing of you.
Go on.
Okay, so after the Amsterdam trip, and I'm not going to say what it was, I set you a target.
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
But you tell me when you do.
I will. And it's not that I can't. I know I can now.
Okay.
But I haven't done it because I've got better things to spend my money on.
Okay, but that's the LinkedIn post I want to see.
Yes, I know you do. We'll have to leave that cliffhanger there for everybody.
Leave it there.
For my 7 watchers. But it'll happen. It's just it's.
I know. I know.
But it has to be at a point where I can just afford to do it just for a LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet.
Sponsored.
Thanks so much, Andy.
No worries. Thanks for inviting me. It's
no
great to see you
worries.
again.
Yeah, you too.